Well, hi there. I want to welcome you to this week's episode of the CBC Home Service Success Network. And it's a new day and a new time for us. We're now moving our show. Our weekly show is going to Thursday nights, 7 p.m. And want to see if we can get more live participation. We're getting a lot of people watching recordings. We're up to about 20,000 views a week on this. So we really appreciate you, whether you're here live with us or you are listening to the replays. So anyway, tonight we got a really special episode for you and a really good topic that we want to talk about, which is a customer promise. The customer promise. You see, every company, whether you realize it or not, you make a promise to your customers. When the homeowner calls your company, the moment they look at your website, they wait. If they pull in your driveway at your showroom, no matter what it is, there's a promise that's already been made. The question is whether you have a company promise. And is your company delivering on that promise every single day? Because your customer promise, this is what defines your reputation. This is what gets you reviews. It determines if customers are going to trust you, whether they'll call you again, whether they'll refer you to your friends. And ultimately, they're going to make the decision if your business grows or it struggles. Tonight, we're going to talk about what a customer promise really is, why it matters more than most companies even realize, how successful companies deliver on it consistently, and how you can strengthen your own customer promise starting tomorrow morning. So, Cheryl, what's your thoughts on the customer promise? What would be your first things out of you tonight?
Well, I think the companies don't realize that the promise comes in that early. I think they're looking at it as when you give them the price and you agree on doing something. But that's not it. Anytime, I don't care if you're walking at the house and you're walking in as a service person, or if you are the manager or the CSR, whoever makes that first contact has automatically made another promise after the promise that came when they saw it on your website or wherever they found you at. So you just have to be consistent and make sure that you fulfill those promises, because if you don't, with the internet nowadays, it's not pretty if you didn't do what you were issued to do.
That's it. So, Josh, what about you? What will be your first thoughts on the customer promise and the need for this and the need to follow through on it?
Yeah. So the first thing is like add on soon as you walk in the door. Like if you see that they're like, if you're there for a cleaning and then you instantly hit someone with an add-on, it instantly ruins the mood. That's the one thing I'm thinking about. Like if people have in their mind that these services should be flat rate, but sometimes, it may be a custom fireplace and it's just not the case, or there may be some other scenario that I can't think of right off the top of my head, but I've seen it lately where the technician walked in and says, well, because you have blah, 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 it's going to be an extra $100. And the customer's just throwing them out the house. So going in and doing what, your CSRs say you're going to do, making sure they have a script that accurately says what you do and that the technician understands their role in that.
Yeah. So what's a customer promise? It's a commitment that your company makes to every customer about the experience they will receive. Let's face it. Everybody promotes we're the best in the market. Nobody says, hey, we're crappy. Nobody says we're going to give you sorry service. Everybody gives a promise in their marketing, on their Facebook, their websites. It's the expectations that you've created. What's your service quality? What's your professionalism, your reliability, your communication, and overall customer experience? Many times we think this is just something written on our website, but it's not. Your customer promise is not what you say, it's what your customers actually experience. And how do you deliver this promise? Through the way your technicians treat your customers and their home, the way your office staff treats them, shows them empathy, the scheduling system you use, your communication, your service standards, everything. When a homeowner calls a home service company, they expect certain things. If you were the customer, you would too. They want somebody to answer the phone professionally. They want someone to show up on time, someone who respects their home, someone who can solve the problem, and they want someone who can stand behind the work they do. That's the unspoken promise every service company makes. But the companies that truly succeed are the ones that clearly define the promise and they build the systems, one of our favorite words here, to deliver it consistently. So Cheryl, after all that, what's your thoughts on what I just read out and what I just talked about?
I think a lot of the bad promises get started. I think they start off as a promise, but the ball gets dropped along the way. A CSR is having a bad day. We always try to teach our CSRs make the last customer as important as the first customer. And then, like you say, you've got a serviceman. You've got so many hands on the ball that there's plenty of times to drop it and not make that promise fulfilled. And like you said, years ago, I think it was more about, okay, did they get it done and they did it right? That was part of it. But now it's the overall experience, kind of like going to a hotel. Is everything good when I get there? Is everything done while I'm there? And is it a good experience when I leave? And I think that is where a lot of the trades fall apart, because I think once they've done the service and if they've made their money, if they don't carry through with the experience and end it at a very good session on the end, whether it's a CSR or a callback from actually the technician that done it, I think this is what people are expecting nowadays. They're not just looking for fix it.
Yep, I understand. When you talk about expectations, I spent 3 nights in a hotel this week. Every one of them was a Hampton Inn, every single one. But 2 of them were under remodeling, and they just didn't meet the normal expectations I have of that Hampton Inn chain that I stay in a lot. So, Josh, what about you? What's your thoughts on what I just said, what Cheryl put in?
Well, definitely like consistency of service is something like if a guy did it by hand and another guy used mechanical methods, customers pick up on that. They wonder if you did a good job. Whereas was your team, let's just say your team was too efficient. Because sometimes people feel like you rushed through it and you couldn't possibly have done a good job because it took the last crew 3 times longer to do the same job. Well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe there was snow on the roof that day and the guy was working by himself. I don't know. But do we have that protection standard? Do we treat the home better than, we treat our own, type thing? Those are those are a few of the things that are on the top of my mind. Right. I know you said something about technology earlier. Now we have software that sends you build a rapport before you even get there, because a customer sees you and they know your name before you get there. And that's a trust building. And then the whole services, like there's one person out there who his guys will tell the customer about a coupon that they didn't know about. Hey, go on here and there's a $15 coupon off. So the guys build trust, from the get-go.
Yeah.
That they're looking out for them.
Right. I think what a home service company has got to understand that when a customer hires your company, they're inviting you into one of their most personal places in their life, a sacred place of them, their home. They're trusting them with their property, their safety, their comfort, their money, and their family. They're trusting you around their kids, around their spouse, and all that. And that level of trust in this present day and time, it's not given easily. We have to actually work to make sure we earn it and we protect it. That's where your customer promise comes in. When your company consistently delivers on that promise, powerful things begin to happen. Customers become loyal. They don't shop around. They call you again and again because they trust your company. Referrals increase because you've got happy customers. They tell their neighbors, they tell their friends, they leave reviews on Google, on Yelp, on Facebook. Referrals are one of the most powerful growth drivers any business can have. Your reputation strengthens, it gets stronger, it becomes your brand. And in today's world of online reviews and social media, reputation travels fast. Companies that consistently deliver on their promise, they become known for reliability, professionalism, and quality. And that reputation becomes a competitive advantage for that company. Share what's your thoughts on what I just shared.
Well, you're right with the internet thing. I mean, years ago, somebody did a bad or a good job. About the only people that knew about it was the people that lived right around you, or maybe at your church or some little place you go. Nowadays, you mess up, it can hit the internet, it can go many, many miles away. Or if you do something good. And I think that's where a company needs to keep up with their reviews, make sure they're good. If something's not good, that's the time to revisit it and try to make it right for the customer instead of just ignoring it and letting it go by. And I think some companies don't do it because they have people that don't like a confrontation. But you need to de-escalate the problem and you need to do it soon. That makes the experience turn around and you can still come up with giving the customer a good experience. Sometimes I think it works better with some people if you have messed up a little bit and then fixed it because they know you're reliable, they know you're trustworthy, they know you're honest, and they know you'll stand behind your word.
Got you. Josh, what about you?
You still see even on local neighborhood groups, people are looking for referrals. I see it all the time. I'm amazed by people looking for referrals from people in their local community, and not just Google reviews and things like that. It happens quite often because there's all these review services out there, Angie, Google, and whatnot, and people are constantly asking, well, who's the best plumber around? Who's this? Who's that? And you're finding that in these local community groups that people are really asking for. They're asking for these reviews because they don't know who to trust. They're trusting and we don't have, some of these neighborhoods are spread out. Then you don't know your neighbor like you used to, but people are, asking their community, who do we go to when we have a problem?
Right. It's kind of like when I was a kid, we sat on the front porch of my grandmother's house. She lived on a street. People walked up and down the street, and people did something called communication. They had conversations. It don't happen anymore. But what happens if the customer promise is broken? That's the other side of the equation. When the company fails to deliver on its customer promise, the consequences of this, it can be very serious. Because when the expectations are not met, customers feel disappointed. And in today's world, disappointed people don't stay quiet. They complain. They leave negative reviews. They tell others about their experience and they take their business elsewhere. And, really, it's not that the company intentionally did something wrong. The problem is usually, and this is one that Josh and I are really on to, a lack of systems. Without systems, companies struggle with all kinds of problems, missed appointments, poor communication, inconsistent service quality, untrained staff. And when that happens, the company's promise becomes unreliable. That's why successful companies understand something that's very important. Systems determine your success. If you want to deliver on your customer promise, you got to build the systems that support it. And so often I hear customer complaints because a company will not return the phone call. The company won't get my quote to me. They don't trust the technician because the technician did not do what they said they were going to do when they said they were going to do it. It's a big problem. And in my opinion, the company has lost the ball. And you got to remember, your staff members are an outreach of you. Back to you, Cheryl. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I really don't think the employee understands that. I don't think they realize that they're an extension, quote, of the company. A lot of them think they're there to do a job and go home and get paid that way. So I think there needs to be some more knowledge passed along. I think there needs to be the conversation within the company to set what needs to be done with your technicians. Don't leave it up to them to figure it out. Give them a class on how to act when they go in. Let them know that every moment they're in there, every time they drop a little soot on something, whatever they do, a word said that's offensive to a customer, that can mess up any good experience they get. They won't remember the whole umbrella. They will remember the technician or the CSR. I'm not putting it on anyone in particular, but the one that broke the chain in the experience. They'll remember that as the whole company.
Yeah. Josh, your thoughts?
I was just on a ride along recently where they were like, well, all the guy cared about, was all he did was spend so much time on estimates. That's all the homeowner could focus on. And, I went back and was able to review. I'm like, well, yeah, look at all your neighbors' chimneys. Yours is literally in the worst shape of they're on a tight street. You could see 20 houses and look at your chimney and then looking at your neighbors. Yeah, yours is falling over. It's
Boy,
not.
I bet that made the customer feel good, didn't it? You got the stinkiest chimney in the neighborhood, brother.
Well, in the conversation I had with the technician, he's like, to them it's obvious, right? To the technician it is. I'm like, dude, there's a lot of things that aren't obvious to people. You just have to understand that it's not in their purview. It's not in their wheel of thinking. It's, my dad could, he knew every car from 68 back. He could tell by the taillights. I couldn't, because that's what, stuff he cared about. I couldn't tell you about that. There's a lot of things that seem oblivious to me. I admit it. But I understand they're not in my focus. And, the homeowner, his chimney's not in his focus. And I've heard this. Well, I've been looking at it they've owned the home for 50 years. And, it's just the way it is. I had this conversation too, and I've done some presentations for some companies with real estate firms, real estate companies. They need to see you, so you come in there, and I try and set expectations of what we're talking about right now. Expectations of, I go through and I'll list every single part of a house that I can think of off the top of my head: the porch, the roof, the windows, the HVAC, the kitchen appliances. And I'll ask them how long each one of those things they can, takes to, what's the life expectancy of all these things? And they have that, they have something in their mind. Then you write chimney on there and all of a sudden they don't have an answer. I'm like, why is the rest of your house, have a 20 to 20, and they'll tell you, right? 20, 25 years for just about everything. But then why is your chimney okay at 100 years? And it's about setting, and you're talking about setting expectation, because how do I unwind that, brick is indestructible, and you literally have your chimney's literally falling in on itself.
Right.
So setting that expectation.
Got you. So how do the successful companies deliver on their promise? What do they do different? We're going to talk about the 5 things that they do differently. Number 1, they focused on consistency, because consistency builds trust. I know when I go to a Subway, I'm going to have that bread cut the same way every time. Sandwich is going to be the same way. They focus on clear expectations because the customer knows what to expect from the moment they call. They have professional communication. The customers are informed about the appointment times, technician arrival, job progress, and pricing. There's no doubts in what they're getting ready to do. Well-trained technicians, not just in the skills to do the job, but they're trained in professionalism, how to properly react with the customer. And they have to become problem solvers. They got respect for the customer's home. They show up in a clean uniform. They're using protective coverings. They have organized work areas. And when they leave, the home is cleaner than when they first got there. And lastly, they're standing behind the work. The company takes responsibility. If something that goes wrong, they fix it. That level of accountability reinforces the customer promise. I've heard the term said, well, they can't see it from my house. And there's some pretty bad stuff out there because, yeah, you couldn't see it from your house, but guess what? Somebody's going to come behind you and find it one day. So think about those things. Put the 5 steps to work in your company. Back to you, Cheryl.
Yeah, I'm back on. I think this is every podcast I come up with this. I think 95% of the thing is communication. I do not think that the business owners have the communication with their people to be able to give them the communication with their clients. And I think if we could perfect the communication, being the training, and showing these guys how important it is. I've watched a couple companies or saw that they were doing role playing, just showing them and then ask, how things are said and how things are done, and then asking them how they feel. And if you can't do it in just that kind of setting, how do you make the 80-year-old lady feel safe and comfortable and feel like when you leave that her house is intact and all that, if you can't communicate to her what you've done and how you've done it and ask her if this was exactly like she wanted it done. And I think that's, again, if I had to take one word and throw over this whole blanket, it would be communication.
Got you covered. That's great. Josh, your turn. What would you add to this?
Cheryl, when you said little old lady at the end, it hit me. I always tried to ask the little old lady, is there anything I can move for you? Make sure everything's back the way the way you want it, kind of move any furniture back for you, that sort of thing. Because I know that was always an issue. But how many advertisement series have you ever seen where with the technician in dirty clothes? Or how many work site photos have you seen where the drop cloths weren't laid out perfectly?
Yeah.
This is what they're expecting. If you show up in a shirt holier than the Pope, looking like you just rolled out of bed, that reflects on you, right? Then they start looking at your truck. How are you treating my house? Do you smell? And if these are the things, then what's the next step? That's uniform services are great for replacing those shirts covered in, in our industry, crown coat, silicones, things like that. Do the buttons, can you work in a button down? I know they're hotter. I know they're sweatier. The material's all polyester. Versus an all cotton shirt that you're buying and replacing yourself. So can you do that type thing? But yeah, nobody's ever, if you look at these big companies, like in my area, it's a Crop Metcalf. They have the 5-star technician. The 5-star technician doesn't have a shirt full of holes, and his pants aren't full of holes. They're one color, type thing. So there's a reason they advertise that, because appearances matter.
Yeah, they do. And Josh, what I hate to see is a company that has a company photograph All their guys and all the ladies in the office, everybody's lined up in front of the trucks. The trucks are arranged right behind them. Have this beautiful photo. Is that what really comes to the house? Is that the way those trucks look when they get there? When they open the doors up, are they organized? Or does it look like a junkyard, a salvage yard in there? These are the things customer bases on. So there's three things I want you to remember if you want to strengthen your customer promise. Ask your people these three questions. What do our customers truly expect from us? That's your first one. Are our systems designed to consistently deliver on that experience? And are we holding ourselves accountable to that promise every single day? When companies clearly define their promise and they build systems to support it, something powerful happens. Their business becomes more organized. Their teams become more confident. Their customers become more loyal. Their reputation grows. And not only with that, their overall demand in the marketplace rises up, their sales get higher, and their profits grow, giving more profits, more compensation to the team members on the workforce. Okay? So think about that. Cheryl, back to you. This will be your last call. Give us your thoughts.
I was talking to a young gentleman today, on the hiring. I was interviewing him. We went down the rabbit hole and some stuff, and we actually got talking about something similar to this. And I told him, I said, if you want to learn one thing going into a trades, remember, if you look at a job and it's okay, that means it's not good enough. It will not meet your customers' expectations, because okay is, in my book, not good enough. It needs to be a really good job to meet an expectation.
That's great thoughts. Josh, what's your closing thoughts on this subject matter for tonight?
To quote you, Jerry, the service call is nothing but the audition for the big sale.
For the big job, the service call is simply the audition for the big job they really need done.
Yep. So if we don't put on I'm going to call it dog and pony show, they're not going to trust you to do the big job.
That's exactly right.
But
So,
can I stick one thing in there?
sure.
It needs not to be a dog and pony show. It needs to be what's shown all the time.
Got you. Josh, did you have anything else? We kind of cut you off there, buddy.
That was the whole point, right? We're auditioning for the big job. We're building rapport. I always found it interesting, like when for this human nature aspect of things that I drill across, guys. If you walk in the door and you can see there was a massive chimney fire within 10 seconds of walking the home, and you're telling the homeowner, their system's screwed, they're not going to believe you. But if you go in, break a sweat, clean the system, inspect it, do all your steps, then tell them, now they'll believe you. I've seen that time and time again.
Very true. And show them the photo documentation of what you're doing to back up your opinions.
Yeah. I saw that all the time. I learned it firsthand. You'd go out and you'd see something and collapsed flue tiles, and the guy'd be like, well, the last guy swept it. And you're just like, and immediately they go on defense. Yep. But if you go through, they see you work a little sweat up, even, they see you're working hard. For some reason, it develops a rapport, whether the information, somehow the information is softer.
Yeah.
So they want to see that. They want to see that you're just not coming in to sell them something. Why don't that Jiffy Lube experience of, well, we know they're going to try and upsell wiper blades and air filters and tire rotation stuff.
Yeah. So as we wrap up tonight's broadcast, first of all, I want to thank you for being here, but I also want to make sure we leave you with some thoughts. Your customer promise is more than marketing. It's more than a slogan. It's actually the foundation and root of your company's reputation. And reputation is what determins long-term success. Companies that build on their promise consistently build loyal customers, strong referrals, and sustainable growth. So take some time this week. Ask yourself, ask your employees, what promise is our company making to our customers? And more importantly, are we delivering on that promise every single day? And with that, we want to thank you for joining us on this episode of the CBC Home Service Success Network. We appreciate you being present as we talk about leadership, systems, and success in the home service industry. And we look forward to seeing you on our next broadcast. Now, just so everybody's aware, next week we will not have a broadcast because we'll be at the HPBA show in New Orleans. So we won't be doing a broadcast next week. We'll be back on the week after that. But hey, if you found this episode to be of value, share it out with your friends. We appreciate you being there. And with that, we hope you have a great week ahead, great weekend, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode. It's an honor, it's a privilege, and a pleasure to have you join us on these broadcasts. Appreciate you being here. Talk to you next time.